It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. An era of American prosperity after World War II couldn't hide a growing divide in the city known for coming to the world's rescue. Bridgeport, Connecticut was known as the Arsenal of Democracy for having manufactured arms for heroes of the Great War.
Bridgeport used to be booming with the factories and things.
There was a lot of jobs. Some of these companies moved away. Remington Arms moved out to Arkansas.
In this great industrial city, public housing was beginning to show signs of systematic faulting. Education for all left some behind. Poverty was affecting entire communities.
We grew up in Father Panic Village. We were on welfare. Everybody was struggling. Even if you had a job to some degree, you were still in a sense, struggling to some degree.
There was great poverty, especially among low-income minority population, black population especially.
And an industry that was starting to see glimpses of a peacetime future saw instead industrial decline. All this at a time when the Cold War scared children under desks. And even the world's most charismatic leader would be assassinated in our own country for all to see on network television.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy.
So what would Bridgeport do? The Chamber of Commerce and a group of community leaders known as the United Fund Community Planning Group took on the task of trying to find solutions to local poverty. Community leaders vowed to
improve the character of the greater Bridgeport environment.
In the meantime, President Lyndon Johnson, who took over for the murdered president, was now trying to help struggling cities like Bridgeport, Connecticut, by signing into law the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964, an act to create community action agencies that would work on the front lines in the new war against poverty right here at home.
And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
What would that look like in the Park City? A city with a growing black population from the South and a mid-century Puerto Rican migration joining previous European immigrants, all looking for work and a place to call home.
I think what was missing in the community was an organization that you know that you could go to for anything.
More than anybody, I think a guy by the name of Parker Lansdale, who was with the YMCA, but also connected to the United Fund, the Community Council, and a lot of social agencies in Bridgeport. Parker, I have to give him credit for kicking it off. He knew a lot of people, a lot of the chief executives of different social agencies.
Eugene Michael, one of ABCD's first volunteers, remembers how the agency started.
There were 6 designated poverty areas in Bridgeport that had to be studied. And then we submitted the application to the federal government and became identified and, approved.
I originally read about ABCD in the Bridgeport Post. I can recall their opening in September of 1964.
ABCD was a multifaceted agency, covered a number of different areas: employment, education, daycare. Those things were missing prior to ABCD's arrival, but they were in desperate need.
The other thing they had is the agency had these neighborhood consuls, and they had leaders. Indigenous leaders came up through the ranks, and they were able to work with the housing authority, city administrations.
We were right there in the community. You become familiar with the people, the different organizations that they have. When they had the multi-service center, they had legal services. They had an employment office, plus us, so it was important. And then remember back in the days, they had the USDA program where they gave out the free cheese and the powdered milk and all that kind of stuff. People were really coming out for that.
And the fact that it was anchored in the community, it gave some people, even in spite of this, not because of it, but in spite of it, gave some people some level of hope.
I was fascinated by what was going on, and I decided as one of the first volunteers and first neighborhood coordinators to apply for the position of Director of Neighborhood Services. ABCD at the time thought that would be good, yet there was a caucus of black ministers who opposed me pretty vehemently and publicly. And they said, no, this should go to, a black person.
The reason that it was critically important to have a black man do this is because traditionally, black people, or black men in particular, have been looked upon as being the lowest thing in American society. So when you have somebody that comes along that is above that is motivating people, giving them food for thought to move them forward, and they look like you, and they can empathize with you, it's a great asset. It's a tremendous asset. And as a result of that, you can move forward and see the strength in them somehow transfer to you.
Charles Tisdale became ABCD's first black executive director in 1968.
Charlie had a unique personality. Anybody that ever met him would know that. Charlie was dogmatic in terms of his thought process, in terms of what he wanted to get done. Having a Charlie Tisdale at the helm of ABCD, and a Reverend Johnson as well, certainly was critical, having those people at that helm, moving the ship forward.
He was a strong character, a real Bridgeport character, and in the best sense, and certainly generations of constituents and members of the ABCD and the Alliance family have benefited from the foundation that he and others laid down going back to the middle and late 1960s.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear.
The 1960s exploded in a number of different ways. 1965, the civil rights movement was in its golden era, and at the same time, you had an extraordinary increase in our involvement in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. So quite a bit was going on.
Certainly the death of Martin Luther King invoked a lot of anger, a lot of frustration.
There was a lot of tension, unrest in the late 60s, early 70s. So the summer youth program was a great opportunity for kids to get caught up if they weren't doing well in school, to take courses again, during summer school, and also to make a few bucks. So that was a big thing. And CETA funds were distributed to ABCD to administer these summer youth programs. I can remember being in city government, probably about 2,000, 2,500 kids worked during the summer.
And it gave people a motivation and a level to look beyond their circumstances. Through the educational alternatives programs in which I was working with LaWanda Martinez, it provided me the opportunity to go to school. It paid for your college education, and it provided me an opportunity to look at things from a totally different perspective.
Well, when I was a kid, ABCD was everything. They gave me my first job. When I was 13, I lied and said I was 14, and I got a janitor's helper's job at Bassett High School. I did that for a while, and then I got a summer job every summer. I was assistant director of the summer camp over at Longfellow School. That was my first paycheck. That's how I bought my school clothes. And that's how I started out life working.
For me, I really got to know them when I was senior in high school maybe, and I was interested in journalism, and I remember they offered me my first job, and that was making the newsletter for ABCD. And so on Stratford Avenue somewhere in one of the buildings there, they had an office, and they had this old printer, and I had to crank it to make the newsletters. It was my first job in the industry. I was able to tell the ABCD story as a youth to kids and to people, and that was my first experience. So it helped me understand what I wanted to do for a living, and I actually was able to do that career and become a journalist.
Good evening, I'm Carly Centrella.
And I'm Frank Boris, topping the news tonight.
You come from where I came from, you already suffer from low self-esteem. You're around a bunch of poor people, the conditions are poor, the quality of life is poor. And then you see these people that look just like you, that have probably come from similar circumstances, overcoming those circumstances and becoming Charlie or becoming Monette and people like that. That's important to see because that's one of the reasons I became a cop, because I saw a black cop when I was 11 or 12 years old. So that told me what the possibilities were like, and I never forgot that, and I figured if they could achieve, so could I.
I remember I was 13 years old. My father took sick with kidney disease, and I needed a job. And so my father said, well, we're gonna go see Mr. Tisdale. So we went upstairs, and he was there. My father said, I'm on kidney dialysis. And he said, my child needs a job. He picked up the phone, called Seaside Park, and that's when I got my first job, 13 years old. At 13, as a camp counselor, and it all came through Mr. Tisdale.
I was a clerk typist. Edith Elliott was here with Ed Kepler, who was the executive director. He was on loan from GE, and I worked with him.
ABCD was a critical factor in the growth and development of not just the community, but everybody surrounding the community. I think everybody benefited, even the surrounding communities benefited because of ABCD.
ABCD was always a staple for people in need of whatever they needed. So raised in Marina Village, not too far away from the main office, and my mom enrolled me and my siblings at the time in the Head Start program. My first memory is of Altarine Johnson, my preschool teacher. At 3 years old, I did not nap. I was that kid. Being a third child, consistently attention-seeking, trying to find my way. And she not only tolerated me, she nurtured me.
I got a joke to tell you. I hope it's okay, and I can tell it. Dr. Ferguson, she was my student. She used to be my student. And you can see leadership qualities in a child. Because even though she was the type of child that never went to sleep, but she was not a disruptive child or an aggressive child. So those are leadership qualities. You give her things to do, like I would take the books off the shelf but not let her see me. And she'd go organize all the books on the shelf. You make leaders out there, especially if they're not aggressive, and they can help the other children along. But early childhood, if you don't catch them at here and they get up here, you can forget it. Because it's gone.
My first pastor, First Baptist Church of Stratford, Reverend William O. Johnson, was a director and one of the original executives that pulled together ABCD.
I think by him, again, having a church, and so many people knew him, again, they felt free to come to him because he was a person who would go the last mile for you.
People need help. I experienced it firsthand working with the youngsters and hearing, a lot of the issues that they were struggling with. Parents not being able to give them food, clothes, the things that they need for school. So ABCD 30 years ago when I was around was stepped up, was right there doing what they do best, and that's serving the community.
I grew up, I immediately became the translator for everybody in the neighborhood. My mother just used to say, hey, you gotta go with this one, that neighbor, the other neighbor, and translate and go to ABCD because they need energy assistance.
We send you back the money you would spend on your heating costs. The state calculates it to help you with those heating costs that you already paid for.
It's not easy to be on the other side. It's difficult to come and ask for help. So you have to have empathy, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to understand where those people come from.
So I was the client. The single moms that I encountered, I was that single mom. The dads who were trying to figure it out, I had the same experience with my own father. Nobody wants to be poor. Let's be clear. Poverty is not a desired place to be. So when folks find themselves in a circumstance when they need help, it's not a good, comfortable, soft, cushy place to be. So we need to recognize that. We need to put ourselves and our personal circumstances aside, but we need to lead with our authentic, loving selves when we care about the community.
Having this partnership with Alliance has allowed us to help our families You know, whether it be rental assistance with utilities, the summer food market that Alliance does. Some of our parents take advantage of that, and they're grateful for it. The daycare now. I mean, we got parents with children utilizing that service.
How we do it now has to be different. We have to get folks out of this cycle. We can't be the hamster on the wheel. We can't keep chasing our own tail. So it's workforce development. It's education and skills. It's connecting to industry and jobs. It's creating relationships with folks in this world that have more and are willing to share, and then developing that journey of upward mobility and self-sufficiency that we talk about in our mission.
I think the other piece is meeting families or residents where they are, which we have the many satellite offices, because everyone can't come to the main spot here on Park Avenue. So just being creative, being innovative. I think the last thing that I enjoy being here is listening to residents themselves. They can tell you what they need. The challenge is, will we respond and step up and support them? And ABCD and Alliance continues to do that. We hear them, we understand them, and we want to partner with them. Not tell them what to do, but partner with them.
I'm a single parent. I've raised 2 sons. Unfortunately, my wife passed away. My kids were young in grammar school, and I've raised them both and send them both to college. Blessed to say that I have a son who is a behavioral therapist in Virginia and just recently wrote a children's book. And my other son is a medical doctor, Dartmouth grad, Ivy League grad, and is practicing, him and his wife, she's a physician as well, and they're practicing medicine in Maryland.
When I first started with ABCD and stuff like that, I was at a low too, a very low. But coming into a program that embraces what's already there is what got me where I am today. My own site. But I tell everybody, it is not about that name. It's about the person behind the name, which is me. And I know why I'm here. I'm here to serve. Everybody says, oh, you deserve it, you deserve it. No, take the D off it. I'm here to serve. I know why I'm here.
Currently, I am the youth director. I service 12 schools in the city of Bridgeport, 10 elementary schools and 2 high schools. And it's rewarding to see the children. We serve over 1,000 children a day. And we provide a lot of services, and just to see some of them grow up and they come and they get scholarships, they go on, and then they come back and they serve the community, it's satisfactory.
If every single day, if we change one person's life, one person at a time, it's a success.
The mission is still the same. It's all about empowerment. Empowering what's already there just to go a step higher.
Well, I see that it's changing. You know, it's no longer the accent for Bridgeport Community Development. You know, now it's Alliance. And I think that's timely because, you know, as you grow, you should evolve and become more than you were. You know, that's the barometer for success, that, you know, you're here for 60 years and you continue to evolve to meet the needs of the people in Bridgeport. You know, it's one of those institutions that we have here in Bridgeport that's had the longevity and the reach and the effect on people's lives here in Bridgeport, you know.
Anytime that we pick up the phone and call Dr. Ferguson and her staff, yes, absolutely, they are there for our community.
I see it as life-sustaining for some people, but I also see it as something that I would love to not exist anymore. I would love to put myself out of work. I tell my staff and my friends and my family that all the time. I envision a world where there's no need for an alliance. Although that is not a reality, as folks say, the poor will always be with us. There is a dignity and a respect and where we can serve people to where they know they matter.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Paul and Silas began to shout. Doors popped open and all walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. can stand are the chains of hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Got my hand on the freedom power. Wouldn't take nothing from a journey now. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.